As a mere human, I was surrounded by a pack of wolves. My fate to be decided by their vote. Chapter 3. Lydian watched the scarred man, Noah, leave with a hard glare. He was obviously the alpha of the territory they landed on. And he was the scariest man she had ever met. She kept her emotions well locked up. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Refusing to let her fear show. It was the scars that made him so terrifying, the reclaim arcs beginning in the right temple then spanning down to the bottom of his cheek, barely missing his eye and touching the side of his lip, leaving gaps in his jet-black beard. Not counting the ones on his bare chest and arms, no. His sheer presence radiated authority and power, and when the amber of his eyes glowed, she could feel the waves of power choking her. Even her boys turned meek, clutching her shirt with tight, tiny fists. She wondered where her torn sweater ended up. She was only thankful the doctor was a woman. She couldn't bear the thought of a man's hands on her while she was unconscious and defenseless. "Mummy, are we going back to get Granny?" Lydian looked at the naked four-year-old she treasured more than life itself. She couldn't think about Lydia. Not now. She needed to be strong, and Lydia's final moments threatened to drown her in a well of grief. Telling the kids they didn't ever see their Granny again didn't seem prudent. Not mere hours after they'd been chased by a group of ill-intending men. So she distracted them. She asked about what happened when she hadn't been awake. The boys were more than happy to recount every detail. She tucked them under the blanket even though they didn't look cold. And listened. She stifled a shudder when they told her she was carried by a man. Considering the half-dressed state of the two males she'd seen so far, she didn't particularly appreciate the fact she was plastered to a naked male chest all the way here. At least they were alive. A knock on the door interrupted the boy's story. The doctor, Ava. She brought a stack of clothes and blankets. Lydian apologized after seeing the state of the bed. The sheets were damp and streaked with mud. "Don't worry about it. We'll get them clean tomorrow. You can use the other beds." Ava pointed vaguely around the room. "You can also use the shower. There's hot water and everything you may need." Lydian attempted a smile at the woman. She needed to have at least one friendly person in her corner if she wanted to survive. "You're safe here tonight. Just have a good rest and we'll talk tomorrow." They kept saying that. Ava left shortly afterwards. Lydian stumbled to the bathroom with Elijah and Ezra. Unlike the room, which was all wood, the bathroom was tiled in shades of white and cream. It was a basic bathtub with a shower. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. A mirror and some cabinets. She took care of the kids first. After giving them a good scrub in the bath, she bundled them in the clothes Ava brought. They fit perfectly. Then, as the boys waited inside the bathroom, she took a shower. The hot water felt like heaven, but it was still a stranger's bathroom. She was comfortable in it. She couldn't savor the shower as much as she would have liked. "Baby," Lydia asked Ezra later when the kids were tucked inside the blanket with her. Elijah was already snoring. The single bed was crowded, but she needed the comfort of their warm bodies more than they needed hers. Lydian kept the bedside lamp on. "Do you know how you guys did that trick? When you spoke in my head." Shadow and light played on Ezra's face as he yawned. "We do that all the time," he replied off-handedly, as if it was something everyone could do. "Since when?" Lydian asked, as if it was a big deal. A sleepy frown on Ezra's face. "I don't know." His eyes closed. Lydian listened to her kids even breathing and let a tear escape. She was so grateful to have her children alive that she didn't care if they could do some weird telepathic trick. She released a deep breath, but it failed to dislodge the rock on her chest. At least, the twins would be safe here even if she was killed or kicked out tomorrow. No, she couldn't even fathom life without the twins. She had been barely existing before them. To not have them in her life. She shuddered as the black void of her teenage years threatened to open and swallow her whole. Sleep wouldn't come. Unsurprisingly, Lydia's bloodied body was etched to the back of Lillian's eyelids, waiting to rip her heart to pieces every time she closed her eyes. Lydian jumped at the sound of the wind outside. She kept a watchful gaze on the door and the dark windows. According to the faint light outside, it was almost dawn when there was movement outside the room. The boys stirred but remained asleep. She slowly sat up and sneaked out of the bed, her head pounding and her entire body sore, either from a lack of sleep or from the car accident. Probably both. She perched on another bed, facing the door, and thought about her situation. One thing was for certain. The wolves did not like having her on their land. If they let her go, she was sure they'd let her keep Elijah and Ezra. Besides, even if they let her and the boys leave, where would she go? Right now, being in a human city seemed more dangerous. And was that just insane? She would never have thought she'd feel safe on immortal land. Not safe, just safer. However, Lydian was sure of one thing. She would never willingly let Elijah and Ezra go. She had lived her entire life yearning for a family, and she wouldn't easily give it up now that she had it. "Over my dead body," she mumbled under her breath, meaning the words quite literally. When the door opened, standing up straight, she lifted her chin and locked her fear and apprehension behind a mask of tenacity. It was the Alpha who graced her with his presence. The light from the lamp barely reached his face, but not even darkness could cloak his immense built-in bare chest. He was sculpted from rocky mountains, his entire body bunching muscles and scars that spoke of a world so different from hers. They stared at each other. His amber eyes glowed for a fleeting moment before their light dimmed again. The Alpha crooked a finger, indicating for her to follow him. She narrowed her eyes at the order, but moved towards the door. "I won't leave my kids here alone," she whispered. She barely reached his breastbone. Up close he was even bigger. He glanced over her shoulder at the snoring twins, then looked back at her. "It was a request," he said in a perfectly calm tone. "You don't have a choice. You'll come out either way. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing Kushut's enthusiasm." Lydian glared at him. He was right though. She didn't have much of a choice. And she'd do best to remember that antagonizing the leader of a wolf pack was in the best interest of her survival. Looking at the size of those muscles, he could break her like a twig. Lydian stiffened at the thought of being under his mercy. She nodded anyway, following after him when he walked out without a word. The hallway was a short trip to the main door of the log cabin. Outside, the world was in the dawn shades of blue and grey, the sun having yet to make an appearance. There were werewolves outside the cabin, men and women who stood around the place, their bodies corded in muscle. They all looked at Lydian with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. It was straining, but the cold was a shock to her body. Dressed in only a white sweatshirt and black sweats, her feet were bare to the freezing wet grass. The Alpha's gravelly voice disturbed the early morning. "Why were the humans chasing you?" "They wanted the kids." Lillian's throat closed up at the thought of the previous night's horrors. "I don't know how they knew they were wolves. They killed the woman you were living with. She warned me before she died." Lydia's final moments flashed in her head again, choking her. Not now. The scarred wolf leading the way didn't reply. He also didn't seem to feel anything while she was freezing her butt off. He was dressed in a pair of shorts, bare-chested and barefoot, but he strode through the forest like it was a sunny shore. Cursing him in her mind, she almost jogged to keep up with his giant steps. He led her through the trees surrounding the lone cabin. Lydian stole a glance over her shoulders. The thick trees quickly swallowed the cabin where her children slept. The fact that the Alpha, Noah, was walking in front meant he was very confident she wouldn't, and couldn't, escape. His jet-black hair fell in thick and glossy waves until it curled at the back of his neck. His back displayed an array of muscles Lydian had never before seen. It spoke of a strength born of necessity and not of pressing weights in the gym. Lydia uncrossed her arms to ward off the chill. Deep down, she was terrified of what awaited her. But as H.E. so kindly pointed out earlier, she had no choice in the matter. She almost ran into him when he abruptly stopped, tripping to a halt. She took in the place. It was a small, lush clearing. In the middle of it stood Ava, still dressed in a plain tee, shirt and jeans despite the cold. Sean, still glaring daggers at her in his impressive half-dressed state, and a woman she didn't recognize. Lillian felt that the woman was a werewolf, just as she had felt that Ava and humans when she first laid eyes on them. But since she didn't have much experience in telling apart different immortal races, she couldn't tell what the woman was. Her long orange maxi dress and white fur coat did nothing to hide her tall, curvy figure. Long black hair waved down her back to her hips, a town skin that almost exuded light, and cat-like blue eyes that watched Noah in unmistakable appreciation. Ava was beautiful, with her smooth red hair and hazel eyes. Heads would turn if she walked down a street in Lillian's little town. But this woman was on a whole different level. It was as if she radiated seductiveness. She had the kind of beauty that made men go to war. Noah looked back at Lillian and frowned harder. She sniffed, clenching her teeth to keep them from chattering. She could barely feel her feet anymore. "Let's go," he mumbled, then led her to the awaiting three immortals. The stunning woman beamed at Noah with eyes full of hunger and possessiveness. It made Lillian want to take a step away from him. He was all hers for all Lillian cared. "Noah, my dear." Her voice was husky, a siren's call coming out of full cherry-red lips. "You have no idea how delighted I was to know you've asked for me so early in the day." Noah's expression was as stoic as ever. Ava indiscreetly rolled her eyes. "Karina, this is the human," Noah said, indicating Lillian with a jerk of his head. Karina scanned Lillian from head to toe. Lillian could only imagine the shivering mess she was right now. Her hair was all over the place. Her lips must be turning blue and her face was a pale, scratched mess. Lillian's gaze clashed with Karen as the woman tilted her head, the blue of her eyes seeming to gleam. Lillian had the sudden urge to drop to her knees and worship the woman. How could she be so beautiful, so perfect? Looking at her felt like the sun shining after a long, dreary winter. Lillian would abandon everything for the woman. Lillian shook her head at that foreign thought. She wouldn't be abandoning anything, not for anyone and certainly not for this strange woman. A haze that Lillian didn't realize had taken over her mind cleared up with a pop. Her ears rang. Lillian frowned, blinking rapidly. Karina narrowed her eyes as they gleamed brighter. Lillian shrugged her stiff shoulders, shaking off the unreasonable thoughts that lingered at the periphery of her mind. "What?" Karina murmured, her eyes returning to normal. Lillian could breathe easy again. "Wow," Ava said with a grin. It really didn't work. Karina's face turned hard as she glared at Lillian. "What is she?" "She feels like a human. Humans are the most vulnerable species to me." Realization dawned on Lillian in unrepentant fury. "You were in my head," she said through gritted teeth. Karina dismissed Lillian with a flick of her wrist. The beautiful woman ranked lower than Noah on Lillian's list of favorite people. And Noah was at the very bottom. "That's why you're here," Noah told Karina. "She says she mothered wolf pups. Can you know for sure?" Karina laughed out loud, the sound purely musical. But now that Lillian was aware of the woman's nature, she was affected. She knew immortals had some tricks up their sleeves. That was why they stayed at the top of the world. But living it firsthand made her skin crawl. "Oh, this is very amusing." Karina looked at Lillian as if she was a bug she could crush with a clap of her hands. "Yes, of course I can. But since she's immune to my powers, there's a chance she's not truly human." Lillian doubted that. Sure, she'd been a bit of an odd human all her life, but that was what she was, a human. Ava and Sean looked skeptical. Noah was as impassive as ever. "Can you check?" Belva asked again. Lillian looked at him like he sprouted another head. "You can't be serious," Lillian said, her eyes wide in disbelief. "Just because her little trick didn't work on me doesn't mean I'm not human." "You're also supposed to be the mother of 2 wolf pups," Sean said, making Lillian look away from Noah's probing gaze. Still, Lillian persisted. "I mean, you guys can't tell if I'm human or not, can't you? Like, Tell by the way I smell or something. You do smell awfully human, Sean replied, a slightly disgusted expression as he looked her over. But magic can do all sorts of things. We can never be too sure. Especially after the fiasco with Arthur's mate months ago. Ivor said. Elle lived as a human, too, for some years, and no one suspected anything until she came in contact with her mate. Lillian was vaguely aware of the fact that Lord Arthur, the vampire who ruled over the Americas, had taken a mate. She hadn't been too invested in the news that made a buzz a few months ago. True, Karina said. Elle's existence is an oddity on so many levels. After she came to light, we learned that anything is possible. So yes, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Human could very well be something else. I just need a little blood to check. Lillian took a step back. She wasn't ready to bleed for anyone anytime soon. Do it, Noah said. Lillian gaped at him. Sure, they weren't buddies, but that didn't mean he had to jump at the chance of cutting her. Just a drop of blood will do. Human, Karina said, crouching to scoop a handful of wet soil in her palm. Your blood isn't of much interest to me. Yet that was reassuring. Lillian stifled the sarcastic reply. Avouched Lillian, her nails turning into claws. Elijah and Desra did that sometimes too. It hadn't been odd for claws or fangs to occasionally make an appearance in their household. The red-headed wolf took Lillian's hand in her own, pricked her index finger with the sharp tip of one claw, then squeezed the bleeding skin on top of the soil Karina held in her palm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, Karina said. Lillian didn't register Ava squeezing more of her blood because she was too busy staring at Karina. Black consumed her eyes, churning with darkness. Lillian gulped. She was having a hard time keeping her fear locked in, but she gritted her teeth and kept her expression in check. Predators fed on the fear of their prey, and Lillian had no illusions. She was the prey here. Enough, Karina said. Lillian cradled her hand to her chest and watched with the wolves as Karina, who Lillian was starting to believe was a witch, put her other palm over the soil. She chanted words under her breath. It sounded like a foreign language to Lillian's ears. A creepy foreign language, wet with Lillian's blood, turned into mud. Then it bubbled. Steam rose out of it before it fizzled out with a hiss. Seconds later, Karina's eyes turned into their original blue. A scowl twisted her perfect features. She's human. Karina dropped the soil to the ground with a disgusted expression. She is definitely human. Well, that was anticlimactic. After that show and the gripping anticipation, Lillian thought there would be some sort of revelation about her secret ancestry. Not really. She knew she was human. These people were just too damn paranoid. Noah looked at Lillian, clearly confused. A very rare display of emotion on that cold mask. Are you certain? Sean asked, obviously disappointed. Blood does not lie. Wolf, Karina said, dusting her hands. Okay, Ava said with a raised brow. That leaves the matter of pups, yes. Although I don't see how a human can possibly carry immortal pups in her womb. Karina sighed. But I can check. I only need the blood of the pups. Wits with her and blood. Lillian whispered under her breath. Eva's cough sounded suspiciously close to a snort. Her eyes were amused when she met Lillian's gaze. Lillian had a feeling she was the only one who didn't like the witch. They'll be here in a minute, Noah said. So what's going to happen afterward? Lillian asked. You're human, Sean said. You have no business staying on wolf land. Lillian fisted her hands, meeting the wolf's eyes head-on. You're not taking my kids away from me. They're not yours, Sean said through gritted teeth. Whatever you say, Lillian scoffed. She was tired of repeating herself. She carried the twins in her belly for 9 long months. She gave birth to them in an agonizing 8-hour labor. She nursed them to health and worked her butt off to feed them. She was their mother whether the hard-headed wolf agreed or not. A deep growl filled the clearing. Scene's eyes, a soft brown, turned amber as he took a step toward Lillian. In an instant Ava was in front of him, her hands on his forearms. She murmured something Lillian couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it made him relatively calmer. His eyes lost the amber edge. Karina looked more than amused, and although Lillian kept her eyes on scenes in a glare, she could feel the weight of Noah's gaze all the time. The twins' excited chatter broke the tension. Lillian looked over her shoulders at Elijah and Ezra. The sun rays broke through the clouds, illuminating their beautiful features. The strands of gold in their brown hair shimmered under the morning light. They were followed by a man, just like Sean and Noah. He was heavily built, with skin that spoke of hours under the sun, and rich brown hair. His brown gaze was playful and light as he watched the boys. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilgan, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Elijah ran to her, barefoot, followed by Ezra. The twin grins on their faces refueled Leon's desperation to keep them safe with her. Lillian chuckled when Elijah bumped into her with a force too big for a boy his age. Except that he wasn't a normal boy. He was a wolf pup. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She crouched to hug her sons. They wrapped their little arms around, and neck and Lillian felt whole again. She swallowed the knot in her throat. No, she wouldn't be able to let go of her boys. She had led only life before them, stained with darkness and despair. Having them brought color back to her grey existence. She found a reason to live in them, and she would die if she let them go. Lillian looked up to meet the gaze of the wolf who accompanied her boys. She nodded at him, and he surprisingly nodded back, though his expression remained neutral. With Sean a safe distance away from them, holding Ava to his chest with a hand on her stomach, Karina stepped forward again. The new wolf, whose name was Jake, was the one who pricked the boy's fingers. Lillian just squeezed hers since the cut was still fresh. Karina repeated the same process, holding a handful of soil under the blood of Lillian and her boys until it was soaked. Elijah and Ezra bravely winced when Jake's claw broke the skin, but other than that they were fine. Their cuts started healing only seconds later. That was one of the things she had been pleasantly surprised to learn. It wasn't public knowledge, according to what Lillian knew, but wolves could heal at an alarmingly fast rate compared to humans. She first found that out after her boys first shifted. They would repeatedly scrape themselves, but by the time she sat them down to disinfect the wound, it was already sealed. She'd been shocked the first time it happened. But, like every mother in her shoes would, she considered it a blessing. Only Karina's unintelligible words were heard in the clearing. Intense anticipation gripped everyone. This time there was no bubbling. A bright, pure blue flame unlike anything Lillian ever saw erupted on Karina's palm. Elijah and Ezra gasped. Lillian pulled them behind her as she took a step back. Karina barked a word and the flame instantly died down, leaving behind burnt soil remains in the witch's palm. Whatever it was that had just happened, Karina was pleased. She frowned at Lillian and the boys. So Jake gasped from where he stood next to Noah. Karina gave a stiff nod. The human speaks the truth. The pups are hers. Lillian had the childish urge to yell, "I told you so." She didn't. She just took in the wide-eyed gazes around her. "Karina," Noah said, "Jake will escort you to the border. The Coven will receive payment as agreed upon. I was hoping to spend more time with you." Karina pouted. Actually pouted. Those red lips. "But oh, I see you have a mess to take care of." As she passed Noah, she basically rubbed against him as if the clearing was 100 feet wide. Noah didn't even react until Jake and Karina disappeared. Scene's teeth were gritted when he spoke. "She can't stay here. I didn't ask to stay," Lillian replied, tightening her hold on her children's shoulders. They stayed put as if they could sense the severity of the situation. "I'll take my kids and go," although she didn't know where. "You can't just leave," Sean snapped. "You've been raising two wolf pups for 5 years. You know some things that aren't for human ears." Besides, we can't trust a human to raise two of our own. Your race always screws things up. Sean, Ardas, turning in the man's arms. Ellen growled. She's human. We won't just let her leave as if she was strolling into a damn human park. Don't growl at me. Ava growled back, putting her hands on her hips. The fact that she's human comes second to the fact she's the pup's mother. You can't take them away from her. She can't live here, Sean said through gritted teeth. And she can't leave here alive with our secrets. Either way, she has to die. Chapter 4. The pups whimpered, and Noah could for the first time smell a hint of fear on the human. Since Wolf was getting out of control, Noah didn't like smothering his pack under his dominance, but his brother was letting his emotions cloud his judgment. Lillian clutched her pups to her eyes alert and focused on Sean. Her face didn't betray any sign of the fear she'd smelled briefly a second ago. Noah let his wolf come closer to the surface. Sean and Ava stiffened, their eyes dropping to the ground. The pups hid their faces in their mother's legs. Sean, Noah said, there's a situation at the border. Go check it out. Sean looked up but kept his gaze on Noah's chest. You are thinking about keeping her here, are you? Noah growled out loud, then linked his brother go. Sean disappeared after a parting glare directed at Lillian. She returned the favor and glared right back. Noah couldn't tell if she was stupid or just too bold for her own good. She had no sense of self-preservation. Ava looked at her mate's back with a broken-hearted expression, her hand on her belly. Noah knew Ava was aware of the history that stained Seam's view of the human race. But she was more reasonable than his brother. That was why they were good together. They balanced each other out. Ava turned to look at Noah. Noah, she pleaded with him. Noah settled his eyes on Lillian. Ava, take the kids back to the infirmary. The scent of fear appeared again. Lillian crouched down and engulfed her children in a fierce hug. I love you, guys. Her voice thick. You know that, right? Elijah and Ezra looked back at Noah after she released them, then back at the mom's watery blue eyes. Mommy, you're not coming with one of the twins. Can my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, said in a small voice. You just go with Ava for now. Okay, honey. No, they both whispered. Ezra whirled around, throwing Noah a hard glare. Don't hurt Mom. I won't let you. Noah was torn. His protective instincts demanded he protect the two wolf pups from the hurt he would be dealing them, but they also indicated he protect the pack by eliminating the human threat. His wolf waned, unable to decide. Ava turned away from the scene, teary-eyed. Lillian firmly turned the twins toward her again. Blinking hard, she smiled at them. None of that. Now everything will be just fine. Go with Ava and the good boys. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She hugged them both again, then beamed at them. Go on. Lillian met Eva's eyes as the pups walked to her, and whispered, Please take care of them. Eva nodded, pinching her lips. Her disapproval was written all over her face. She took the confused boys' hands and led them away. Lillian turned her back to Noah as she watched them leave. I love you, boys. Lillian shouted after them. The twins looked back. Love you, too, they replied simultaneously. A second after they were no longer visible. Lillian furiously wiped her face, then turned to Noah. Noah knew the logical solution to the problem. They couldn't risk letting her out there. Even though Harvey had cleared her, she had no contact with any suspicious party, was not a member of any organization. She had been leading a quiet life, relatively. You can't leave, he told her. The humans are still looking for you, and what you already know is too much in the hands of the wrong people. He had received a report through Mind, linked when Avi and Sean were arguing. Humans were seen around the western borders. His warriors also reported that by the looks of them, they were trained men. As soon as they glimpsed the wolves, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. They retreated. They knew they'd be torn apart if they were caught. So you're going to kill me, she stated, her jaw set and her back straight. Noah looked at the small slip of a woman. At that moment, it felt as though she could move mountains. There's another option. She blinked, surprised. Hope lit a dangerous spark in her eyes. What option? Erase your memory. Then we can let you go out there, though I don't know how you'll manage with the humans chasing you. Lydian looked at the trees on the side for a long silent minute. You can erase my memory. Not me. Curious to know what was going in that head of hers. Someone else. They'd erase everything. Even the twins. Noah nodded. Everything. We can't risk it. The past 5 to 6 years will have to go. She gave a humorless laugh. And then what? We'll go out there and be hunted down by my own race. Probably tortured for information I no longer have. She paused, as if speaking to herself. And I won't even have the memory of the twins. She shook her head, then met his gaze. The impact blow to Noah's gut. Then no. I'd rather you kill me. Noah was shocked. Had she been so sure she would take the offer? You'd rather die? He asked in disbelief. A smile tugged up her lips white from the cold. I didn't know anything could surprise you, she whispered. Then before he could reply, she shrugged. I'd rather die than live not knowing I had two amazing boys. They're the reason I live. Without them, Noah gritted his teeth. The next step would be to end her. He had ended lives before. It was a turning point in his life. He should kill her. It was only one life. A reasonable price to pay in order to protect their secrets. Elle's words from months ago echoed in his head. No one life is worth more than another. Back then, Achidi thought she was making a sentimental decision. He still did. She should have let them kill Noah instead of succumbing to their demands. But he understood Elle a little better. Now nothing was black and white. No decision was purely good or purely evil. Reason did not always win. When he took a step towards the woman, his wolf raged inside of him. It was the first time the beast pushed to take over his body without Noah's consent. Noah closed his eyes tightly, gaining control over the wolf again, then walked up to the woman until he stood not a foot away from her. You'll die, he repeated, looking down at the fire in her eyes. She took a deep breath, the smell of fear disappearing again. Take care of my boys. She smiled at him and closed her eyes. Noah's hands lifted. One move. Quick and painless. Simple. Humans were so easy to kill. Her slender neck would break without a real effort on his part. The wolf raged again. Noah's muscles turned rigid, fighting the beast for control. It had never happened before. Noah's hand touched her neck. Her skin was freezing. A loud ear slid out of Lydian's eye. She bit her trembling lip in. Noah followed the action. Her body was trembling. From cold or fear. He didn't know. Noah's finger caught the tear. Her cheek was cold. Too cold for his warm hand. He brushed a few stray hairs off her face. They felt as soft as Hed expected. Lillian's eyes short open and met his. Her delicate lips parted in a silent question. The creamy skin was scraped from the night's accident. The gash on her temple still an angry red. And her heart beat a strong, steady rhythm against his palm. She smelled of female and strength, of fire and spring. He couldn't do it. Noah thought. Relieved. He wouldn't do it. Who's the father? He was as surprised as Lillian by the question coming out his lips. It took her a moment to process his words. None of your business, she said with a glare. Spirit coming back to her eyes. It is if you want your kids to live on my land. She looked away. Noah shook his head against the grip her chin and turned her head until she looked at him again. I don't know who he is, she finally replied. Just that he was a wolf. How did you know he was a wolf? His thumb absently rubbing circles on her neck. He wasn't aware of the action and neither was she. She hesitated before replying. His eyes turned amber. As simplistic as that was, amber eyes were a dead giveaway for wolves. Can you live with wolves? She blinked. opened her mouth and closed it. Then, I've been living with wolves for 5 years. Touch good. He took a step back, hesitantly taking his hand off her cold neck. The pack will decide if you can live on our land. The pack, what? Wait, she sputtered. You can't just tell me you'll kill me then change your mind. Besides, if the rest of the pack is anything like Sean, you might as well execute me now. A spark of amusement flared in Noah's chest. He kept his expression neutral when he shrugged. Well, if you really want to die. He took a step forward and she jumped back, holding her hands up, eyes wide. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was just saying. She easy. Don't be so eager. Noah resisted the urge to smile at the utterly bewildered expression on her face. She looked like she was still coming to terms with the fact she had a chance to live. The majority of adults in the pack are parents. It would be hard to convince them to let a human live in their midst, but because they're parents, you think they'll sympathize with me, Lydian said, lowering her hands. She nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But if it doesn't work out, Noah didn't tell her that the final decision would always be his. A wolf pack worsted democracy. The alpha might discuss matters with his pack or welcome their counsel and remarks. But the final decision would be the alpha's. His word was law, though Noah preferred having his pack backing his decisions. We'll see then. Thinking about other packs that might want to take them in, his wolf shook his head at the idea. However, you'll have to cut off all ties with the humans. Any family or friends. Not a problem, she replied. Noah nodded. Jake, gather the pack for a meeting. He linked Jake and briefed them on the situation. Yes, Alpha, came his reply. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. If I may, are they going to stay? It will be the pack's decision. Noah replied. What do you think? Jake. I think they'll fit right in. Jake replied. The pack will be ready in 20 minutes. Sean took care of the situation at the border. The humans have completely retreated. Continue watching the borders. Got it. Noah looked at Lydian to find her staring at him through narrowed eyes. He raised a brow. She shook her head then sniffed. Well, let's go meet your pack. And I'd appreciate it if we did it indoors. She said it jokingly, but Noah could see she was cold. He kept forgetting she was a physically frail human, vulnerable to the cold and slow to heal. Let's go. He walked away, her steps rushing to keep up with him. Noah's wolf was behaving uncharacteristically. He never cared about much, other than the security of his pack. And now he was interested in this human female and her well-being. It irritated Noah. He was aware of the faint scent of blood coming off her. The soles of her feet must be scraped bare to the flesh by now. Can I ask you something? Lydian said, then continued without waiting for a response. Why didn't you get rid of me? Surely it would have been less of a pain in the ass to do that. Her words were winded. He slowed down to accommodate her short legs. It's not too late to do that. I'm just asking. She grumbled. I don't want to have to explain to your pups that I had to kill their mother. Lydian was silent through the rough walk. The sun had fully come out, but only the most stubborn of its beams penetrated the heavy cover of trees around them. Noah's land, like most other packs, was entirely forested. The only buildings were the pack houses, and they were all log cabins. Building, plumbing and wiring were all done by pack wolves specialized in respective areas. They hunt their meat and farm what fruits and vegetables are in season. But that didn't mean they deprived themselves of other provisions. They visited the villages bordering their territory every once in a while to see what humans had come up with and buy provisions they cowed themselves produce, ranging from toilet paper to chocolate bars. The pack land was completely off the grid energy-wise. Solar panels of other renewable forms of energy were the source of electricity and heating in most pack lands. Services like internet and phone service were provided by a non-human company. Their forests were also off-limits to humans. Other than the lands claimed by Shapeshitters, some of the forest and the country were off-limits to humans. Humans had been given control over large chunks of forests all over the country. But other than that, the woods were immortal territory. It was the immortals' way of protecting nature. If left to the humans' devices, the wooded areas would shrink until most of the planet was covered with concrete and skyscrapers. Humans weren't happy about that arrangement. But since immortals didn't involve themselves in laws and politics, humans should count themselves lucky. Immortals preferred to keep their interaction with humans to a minimum. So over the ages, they developed and progressed much as the humans did, always learning from the technological breakthroughs that humans made, thus keeping their dependence on humans to things that aren't crucial for their survival and security. A painfully slow 15 minutes walk later, Noah would have done the trip in under 5. He and Lillian reached the Pack village. The buildings were scattered along Lost Lake. The area, much like the rest of the territory, was heavily treed. Noah tried building cabins in a way that minimized tree loss. So the simple one-story cabins were concentrated in one area. They reached a clearing near the shore of the lake. Lillian, panting behind him, took in the mesmerizing landscape mount. Hood in the distance, proud and tall, watched over the pack. The blue water of the lake winked under the bright sunlight. Noah faced the lake and waited for his pack. After a few minutes of turning this way and that, Lillian finally sat down on a fallen tree trunk. He glanced at her. Her face had regained color, flushed from the pace of the walk. Her breathing was ragged and loud. She lifted her foot and inspected the naked bottom with a wince. She needed shoes. Lillian sighed deeply. Noah looked back to the blue water. Are the boys coming? Not yet. Lillian stood up, folded the bottoms of her pants to the knees, then walked into the lake until the water reached her mid-calf. She turned to look at him, and Noah was again hit by the paradox that was this human woman. She looked so small against the majesty of the lake behind her, yet felt as though she could take him on and win. The blue of her eyes put the lake and sky to shame. Thank you, Lillian said, shifting on her feet, a hint of red color in her cheeks. Noah shrugged, looking at the tall mountain in the distance. Don't thank me yet. Even if you're allowed to live here, it won't be easy for a human. Wolves approached. He turned around as the first one emerged from the shadow of the trees. Then others followed suit. In a minute, they were surrounded by 180 wolves, all above the age of 16. The pups stayed behind with the school teachers. Water rippled as Lillian waded out of the lake. She stood several feet beside him, tall and proud, exuding not a hint of fear. Meeting a pack of wolves seemed like an everyday occurrence for her. The display of strength would be in her interest. Noah, like most immortals, appreciated a backbone. His pack members crowded around them. Some of them had never before seen a human. Some had seen a few when visiting the nearby villages for provisions. Many had never before interacted with one. It was natural to see curious, suspicious and mistrustful faces on his packmates, to hear their whispers and speculations. Did everyone hear about the situation from Jake? Noah's voice boomed over the whispers. A cacophony of yes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thildia, then you know why I asked you to gather here this morning, Noah said. As much as it is hard to believe, this human woman gave birth to twin wolf pups 5 years ago. We had a witch check the matter this morning, and it proved true. Wider eyes and a wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Noah continued. She was chased by humans who wanted to get their hands on the pups. Furious growls and snarls from the mothers and fathers in the pack. Pups were to be protected and treasured. It was one of the few things all immortals in the world agreed upon. You can all guess their motive. Having a couple of young wolves in their hold to study and experiment on, to know more about Shapeshitters, to gain an advantage. Whatever it is, it means that this mother can no longer keep the pups safe in the human world. Pups shouldn't be out in the human world anyway, an unaided male soldier said, getting nods of approval from some. Pups should grow up in the heart of a pack. Yes, another female warrior echoed. I don't know how a human could have given birth to wolf pups, and if it was checked by a witch, then it must be true. But where's the father? Noah was about to reply when Lillian did it herself, her voice strong and assured. He isn't around anymore. I don't know who he is. Lillian held her chin high against the few disapproving faces, her hands fisted. How did you take care of them on your own? 2 wolf pups wouldn't be easy to handle for a human. Noah recognized the young mother who spoke. She had given birth last month to a healthy male pup. I was alone, Lillian said, her voice singing through the trees. I lived with a kind old woman who helped me. She passed away last night. Was killed by the men who came after the twins. A rumble of reactions stretched for several minutes. Noah's growl silenced the crowd and shook the earth beneath them. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw Lillian jump and look at him with wide eyes before schooling her expression into neutrality once again. His wolf was amused. Tu m'as été extraordinaire, Madeline Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. As you all see, the woman has nowhere left to go. She knows too much about wolves, and is a mother of 2 pups, so she can't be allowed outside with her knowledge. I gave her a choice either death or erasing her memories of everything she knew about the wolves, of her pups and her life with them, and she chose death. Gasps and speculative glances, versusing the human woman. A few mothers even gave her sympathetic nods. To be honest, Noah wasn't sure any other mother in Lillian's position would have chosen death, but he had a feeling there was more to the woman than what met the eye. There's only one option where the mother and the pups don't end up hurt, and that is to allow her to live on our land. Silence, as everyone took in his words in evident surprise. He continued, however, I will not impose on you that decision. The final say will be yours, to allow her to live in your midst, or to end her life. Wolves turned to their neighbors, discussing and arguing in a buzz of escalating noise. Lillian was stiff as a board beside him, while waiting for a ruling that would define her life. Noah could pick up the vibe emanating from the pack. A lot of wolves had no qualms about having a woman raise her pups in their midst, even if she was human, but they were still apprehensive, doubtful. How do we know she's not a spy? One of his warriors spoke up. How do we know she won't report what she learns about us to her race? The reply came with a stubborn frown from Lillian. If I wanted to report to the humans, I would have done so a long time ago. I already know a lot about wolves from raising 2 boys. Phoebe straightened, narrowing her eyes. So you're saying you'd give your loyalties to wolves rather than your own race? They chased me down like a rabid dog. I won't give my loyalty to someone just because we're the same race. I'm a mother. My loyalties will always lay with whomever my children are safe. And right now, it's this pack. Noah stifled the odd and unreasonable surge of emotions. The pack was clearly divided. He could tell Lillian had won all the mothers, and winning the mothers meant winning their mates. Excellent timing. Arviad, accompanied by the twins. The pack looked at the boys in stunned silence. 2 identical pups who smelled of the human female. The boys were looking at the crowd with wide blue eyes, curious and surprised. Then they spotted their mother and grinned, running to her. Lillian smiled and gathered them to her side. Mommy, there is a lot of wolves, Elijah said in a loud whisper everyone could hear. Is that so? Lillian said. Oh, and Ava let us play with other kids, Elijah added. And they're just like us, Ezra said. Can we stay here, Mum? Lillian was about to reply when a woman stepped forward. Mary, a respected elder in the pack, eyed Lillian with a grey gaze that had seen more lifetimes than Noah could imagine. The corners of her eyes were wrinkled, the only sign of age she chose to display on her dark skin. Some powerful immortals could do that, age themselves physically the way humans naturally did. But very few chose to. The crowd quieted down. And Mary's words rang loud and clear though she did not raise her voice. The safety of the pack will always come first. Sometimes, however, taking a risk to do the right thing is the only way we can live with ourselves and keep our pack's values and courage alive. Depriving pups from their mother could not be further from the right thing. I've seen odd things in my life. A human living in a pack of wolves does not compare. The human has my consent to live in our midst. Then another mother stepped forward. I second. More mothers echoed Mary, young and old. Gradually all the mothers in the pack spoke up, and then their mates joined them. The unmated warriors were the most reluctant to agree. But when Jake, his third in command and master, at arms, stepped forward, the majority of the warriors followed suit. We're behind you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading clichés enthusiasm. Jake said, his flippant smile firmly in place. Noah took in his pack. The majority welcomed Lydian and her pups, but not everyone. He noted the faces that stayed skeptical. Then nodded. It is decided. Then, he bellowed. The pups and their mother will integrate the pack. The pack cheered. The mothers surrounded Lydian in minutes. A radiant grin split her face, one that made her suddenly look too young and too innocent. Noah turned from the scene, his eyes landing on his brother and Ava. They were a good distance from the rest of the pack, cloaked in the shadows of the trees. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing clichés enthusiasm. Ava threw her hands up and stalked away from Sean, heading toward Lydian. Sean did the same, heading in the opposite direction, deeper into the forest. Noah quietly slipped away and followed his brother. He found him on a trail that looked upon the lake. Why did you do it? Sean asked without turning, his eyes focused on the other side of the lake where the pack was celebrating. You're not used to taking unnecessary risks. Noah stood next to his brother, allowing his gaze to land on the woman with the strength of a wolf in her heart. I couldn't do it. Noah was always honest with his brother. Even if I could, my wolf wouldn't let me end her life. Scene's head whipped his way, a frown marring his features. That's a first, he mumbled. What did Harvey say? Chest clear. Does he know the identity of the father? What was a wolf doing? Sleeping with a human? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Noah considered telling his brother, but held back. It was necessary for him to know. And Lydian obviously didn't want to share her story. It's complicated. Sean narrowed his eyes. You're not saying something. Noah growled. And I won't. It's her decision. Don't go sniffing around Harvey either. He won't say a word. Sean cursed under his breath, then sighed. I hope you know what you're doing. They're not all the same. Sean, Noah said softly, just like we're not all the same. Sean fisted his hands, but kept quiet. If you're not careful, you'll ruin what you have for a past you can't change. Scene's eyes fell on Ava. His expression softened, turned regretful. He slapped Noah on the back and disappeared into the forest. His brother had always been more hot-blooded. Noah never had strong reactions about anything. His brother had always been the passionate one. Noah did his job as alpha, took care of his pack and their needs the best he could. It worked for him. So far, no one had complained. His wolf was the same, a more instinctive and feral version of his human half, but equally as level-headed and coldly calculative, until this morning. Noah clenched his hands. He turned around and headed for the borders. He might as well do a border scan since his wolf was too agitated. He shifted mid-run and sprinted trees, stretching his legs. He moved in the opposite direction he really wanted to go. Chapter 5. Lillian felt like she was in a dream. She had encountered death more than once in the last 24 hours, and was still alive. Not only that, her children were alive, safe and happily being themselves for the first time in their lives. You can stay here for now, Ava said. opening the door to a small log cabin tucked in the shadow of a giant fir tree. We'll figure out the logistics after discussing things with Noah. Thank you. Lillian stepped inside. The cabin was one story. Like all the houses around, it had an open floor plan. A simple kitchen on one side, a dining table for 4, a living room with one big sofa, a blue woven carpet, a wooden coffee table and a fireplace. On the other side of the kitchen were 3 doors. 2 large windows on either side of the front door let through enough natural lighting to make electrical lights redundant by day. The boys will have to share a bedroom for now. However, going to the fridge, she opened and checked it with a sigh. You'll have someone drop off some food later, but you can have dinner in the pack house. I don't mind. Lillian looked around with a smile. For the first time in her life, she felt, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She'd had lunch with some of the other mothers in the pack, and she'd had so much fun. They were all lively and energetic, and very welcoming. She had learned that the pack house was a common space for anyone and everyone in the pack. It was the biggest building in the pack village, with several guest rooms for when they had visitors overnight, offices of the high-ranking wolves in the pack, and a gigantic dining room that reminded Lillian of her high school cafeteria. Everything was made with wood. It gave the place a cozy feel. You say that now, Ida said, looking through the beige cabinets. But in a few days you'll want to eat quietly. It's always rowdy there. Say Ava. The red-haired woman looked over her shoulder. What can I do? I mean, I don't know how things work around here, so I don't know how I can work for anything. Do you guys work? Ava chuckled and leaned her back on the counter, crossing her arms. Everyone in the pack has a specific role and rank. For example, I'm the pack doctor, but I'm also the second-in-command female. Sean, my mate, is no second. Lillian frowned. Mate, like, a partner. Yes, but in human terms, husband would be more accurate, Ava said, although even husband is such a temporary and an unstable term, so to speak. Immortal matings last for life. There's no such thing as divorce or separation. Okay, well. Lillian raised her eyebrows. She couldn't picture such an abiding bond. The only relationship in her life that had lasted more than a year was with Lydia and the twins. Ava took a seat at the table. Lillian sat across from her. So everyone in the pack has a specific role and rank. The alpha is at the top of the hierarchy, followed by the second-in-command and his mate. Then comes the master at arms. In our pack, that's Jake. Then there are the warriors and the Gazer. Warriors and Gazer. Ava bit her lip in consideration, then shrugged. This information isn't for outside ears, but since you'll be part of the pack, I guess you should know. Lillian nodded. I know I'm not fully trusted yet. And that's normal. I don't expect to be. But I'll work for it. I'll do whatever it takes to earn a place in the pack. Ivor smiled. I know you will. Noah is a good judge of character. The fact that he let you in means a great deal. He doesn't trust easily. Lillian could believe that. Just that morning his hands were on her neck. She suppressed a shiver at the sensation. His skin was hot. Too hot for touch. Physical contact with men was something with which Lillian was comfortable. But all she could think about that morning was how it was the end of her life. How she was never going to see the twins grow up. Warriors are basically soldiers, Ada said, interrupting Lillian's gloomy thoughts. They're responsible for assuring the safety of the pack and securing the land's borders. Gazer are wolves who rank lower than the warriors. Submissive wolves who hold certain roles in the pack. Each is responsible for something. For example, we have teachers for the pups. There are kitchen staff who take care of everything related to food, from cooking for the pack house to ensuring a fair distribution of foods like meat and groceries we buy from the human villages, and even farming. There are also wolves who ensure other services. Technicians, plumbers, electricians and things like that. So basically, it's a human city on a much smaller scale. Well, except for the rank thing. Ava laughed. I guess you can say that. Except that all wolves, warrior or not, go through daily training. Combat training. Ava clarified, making Liliana's eyes widen. You compared the pack to a city, but in truth, our world is much more interesting than that. Violence and death is something a regular wolf gets to see at least once in their life. It's a normal thing for immortals in general. Lilian slowly nodded. How can you tell what rank a wolf is? We can just tell, Ava said. I don't know how to explain it, but we can sense how dominant or submissive a wolf is. Lilian shifted uneasily. She didn't like having her kids at the bottom of the food chain. Alv knowingly, don't worry. Wolves only start showing signs of joining the rank when they mature. Around 14 to 16. Then they train until their strength settles down. Though we can sometimes tell when a pup is going to be dominant. Can you tell with the twins? Eva grinned at Lilian. We can't be sure, but I have a feeling Noah will have his hands full with them when they grow up. Lilian gulped, equally excited by the thought and growing and uneasy with the fact Noah would have his hands full with them. But, Bava continued, being submissive is not a bad thing. Submissive wolves are the glue that holds the pack together. They are protected by dominant wolves, and their gentle nature balances out the beasts of the pack's dominant wolves. Dominant wolves need submissive wolves more than the other way around. In some ways, a pack can function without dominance, but it cannot survive without submissives. Lilian slowly nodded, absorbing the new information like a sponge. So what can I do? Is there a need in some area? Let me check first. Besides, we'll have to discuss it with Noah anyway. Does everything go through Noah? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nogan. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Iva replied matter of Beckley. Achias the Alpha. Every decision in the pack is his. You make it sound like he has absolute power over everything in the pack. Lilian said, jokingly. That's because he does, came Eva's serious response. The Alpha's orders are law. His every order is obeyed. Packs aren't democracies. Lilian frowned. But earlier, he had the pack vote on whether I stay or not. Yes. Noah doesn't like imposing big decisions on us. He wants to have the pack backing him up in such matters. But if he chose not to do that, no one would blame him. If HED wanted, he would have simply informed them that you'll be staying here. Well, that's... To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Iva laughed. Maybe it sounds weird to you, but our beasts needed dominant presence to keep everything under control. Otherwise, it would be chaos. Lilian thought about Eva's words long after the woman left. She needed to take off the human goggles and learn to look at things from the wolf's perspective. Noah said she and her pups were now part of the pack, but she didn't have a wolf, unlike her kids, so that meant she didn't have to obey his every order. Just the thought brought a scowl to her face. Although she'd been a responsible person all her life, she didn't like being under someone else's thumb. Lilian sighed as she lay down on the brown couch. The surface soft and bouncy. The fabric smelled faintly of lavender and oregano. It made her muscles loosen. It felt like so long since she'd had a moment to herself without the kids running around or the hustle and bustle of the diner. The diner. She'd completely forgotten about it. Oh well, the manager will find someone else to take her place in the blink of an eye. Lilian yawned. The boys were playing with the rest of the pups outside. She could hear them running around and shouting. It felt weird to let them loose like this. She was used to keeping a figurative tight leash on them, especially when going outside odd. For the first time in years, in the heart of a wolf pack, Lilian felt safe. That was her last thought before she drifted into deep and troubled sleep. Sniffing. Lilian woke to the sound of sniffing. She was still laying on her side. Her eyes cracked open to see a small brown wolf sniffing at the hand shed put on the couch right in front of her face. The pup had his front paws on the couch, his muzzle cool and wet against her skin. Lilian smiled. The pup froze. Over-sized ears twitching. "Hi," Lydian whispered, her voice hoarse with sleep. The little wolf licked her hand then barked, the sound high and utterly adorable, drawing a grin on her face. "Aren't you adorable?" Lillian scratched the pup between his ears. Her sons loved it when she did that. And this pup did too. He closed his eyes in a pure blissful expression. Lillian noticed the lighting in the cabin had changed. It was already dark outside. She sat up, took in her surroundings through the darkness. The front door was cracked open. Elijah and Ezra were sleeping on the floor by her feet, both in wolf form. That was a great nap. "Lillian, the pup watched her with big eyes. "Do you know if dinner was already served in the pack house?" When the pup only looked at her, with his tongue hanging out of his mouth, Lillian smiled. She didn't notice right away, but now that she paid attention, the pup didn't give off the same vibe as her kids. He or she was an animal, not a werewolf. She stretched her arms up with a groan, then kissed her boys awake. They yawned, showing little fangs that got bigger by the day. Her children barked at the new pup, then shifted to human boys. Very naked human boys. "Oh dear," Lillian said. "Where did you boys leave your clothes?" Elijah grinned. "We left them outside." He lunged at the small wolf hoof. Ezra joined the tangle, rolling all over the floor. Their playful snarling and giggling filled the dark cabin. The kids' eyes all glowed. Their night vision was much better than hers. Thankfully, she found the light switch with a little help from Ezra. "Antaba said to tell you the dinner is at 8. Ezra said. Lillian picked him up and gave him a loud kiss on his plump cheek. He hugged her back equally as tight. Lillian's heart felt so full it was a wonder the organ didn't burst. "Good boy. You remembered?" He nodded against her shoulder. A glance at the clock told Lillian it was almost time. "Do you remember where you left your clothes?" "Baby." Ezra thought for a moment, then nodded. "Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Come on, honey. Let's go." Lillian opened the door and waited for the other pups, Ezra still in her arms. The night air rays goosenced on her flesh. She didn't want the boys to catch a cold, although they never had before, so she told them to shift. They'd be warmer in their fur. The sun had long since disappeared. Lillian navigated the scattered cabins that blended so seamlessly with the forest. There were lights outside, but they were spread in a way that left dark spots all over. Mainly, the lampposts were close to cabins and pathways naturally made by the frequent trampling of feet. Lillian got a few nods and smiles of greetings from wolf coming and going, or just hanging around with pack mates. But she also had her fair share of suspicious, or straightforward aggressive, glances. She returned the friendly smiles and met the surly gazes unflinching. She was going to cower in some corner just because a few people didn't want her around. It was decided she'd stay, and they should deal with it. This pack would provide the perfect place for her children to grow up, and she got to stay and watch over them. If someone was uncomfortable with her, it was their problem. Ezra barked when he found the clothes. They were folded and stacked neatly under a tree. The twins shifted and dressed. Lillian picked up the wolf. He was much smaller than her pups and fit in the crook of her arms perfectly. "Aren't you adorable?" she cooed. He licked her face, then set his little head on her shoulder. We. The three of them were still shoeless, but Lillian's feet were in the most deplorable condition. She sucked it up. There was hardly anything she could do about it at the moment. She probably should have asked Ava for antiseptic and bandages. Did they even have them? She remembered Ava using them in infirmary. "We're here," Elijah announced, jumping up the porch steps leading to the pack house. Lights illuminated the wraparound porch. It had small tables and chairs, most of them occupied. The wolves ceased their conversation when she stepped on the porch. Lillian met the eyes of a familiar female, the one who had interrogated her in front of the pack. Obviously, The woman hadn't changed her mind, judging by the way she wrinkled her nose at Lillian. Lillian went inside and headed straight to the dining room. She stood in the double doors of the huge, well-lit space. It was at full capacity, but it was still crowded and noisy. Once Lillian appeared, the noise died down before picking up in hushed whispers. There was no sign of the mother's shed had lunch with. According to Ava, most nights, only the unmated wolves ate in the pack house. Families usually had their meals together in their homes. Lillian followed the familiar voice, and smiled when she spotted Ava waving at her from a table in the far corner of the room. She waved back. From where she stood, she couldn't see who was sitting with the doctor, but as they approached the table, her hold on the wolf in her arms tightened. Sean sat right next to Ava, and Noah filled the bench across from them. "Hi," Lillian greeted with a smile. Sean nodded, keeping his eyes on his plate. Noah just looked at her, then the wolf quietly napping in her arms. "Oh, you met Rick," Ava said with a smile. Lillian smiled. "I did. You guys named him. He lives with the pack." Ava shook her head. "There's a pack of wolves. To my agent extraordinaire, Marianne Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, that live nearby. This little guy always gives the slip to his packmates. I'll have one of the warriors take him back after dinner." Lillian settled the animal on the bench next to Ava. "I'll go get our food. Come on." The twins skipped behind her to the cafeteria line. The smell of warm food made her stomach crumble. The boys giggled. "Mommy, you're hungry," Elijah said. Lillian snapped her teeth and made claws with her fingers. "I am. And if you're not careful, I'll eat you." The boys' laughter rang around them. The two men holding out the food smiled. Soon, their trays filled with vegetable soup, pan-roasted beef, and a slice of chocolate mousse pie that made her mouth water. Lillian and the twins joined their table, climbing over the round bench. She sat next to Ava, Elijah next to her and Desra on his other side. Next to Noah, she settled the still, sleeping pup in her lap. He stirred a bit before snuggling closer. Lillian petted the wolf absently. "By the way, Noah," Lillian wanted to know what she could do in the pack. Noah took the time to chew on his meat, swallowed, then looked at Lillian. Lillian stared back expectantly. "What kind of job did you have with the humans?" Lillian shrugged. "I worked as a waitress. I dropped out of senior year in high school, so I had no college degree. I just worked wherever I could over the last few years. After Lillian got pregnant, things went from bad to worse, but she'd never take anything back. All the adversities were a puny price to pay in order to have the twins. They were worth it. I'll see where we can use you." Noah rubbed his bearded jaw. "I also want you to attend class with the pups. If you want to live here, you have to understand how things work in our world. If you don't want to attend with the children, you can ask the teacher for lessons alone. I don't mind sitting in with the kids," Lillian replied, then looked at the twins who were busy inhaling their mate. "The twins can attend right away." Noah nodded. "No formalities needed. Someone will drop by tomorrow to show you around." Alva clarified. "Thank you." They ate their dinner, and Lillian considered the question running through her head. Would it be a good idea? Lillian's plate looked empty compared to the adults around the table. Eva's plate had at least triple the amount Lillian ate. And the men. She didn't even compare. She was about to spear off a kefuel of chocolate pie when she felt Elijah's eyes on her. He was holding his spoon in the air, his plate completely empty and his lips smeared with chocolate. Out of her sons, he was the one who had inherited her chocolate addiction. "To my agent extraordinaire, Marianne Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Surprisingly for a child, was impartial to sweets. Lillian ate the kefuel of chocolate goodness, then sighed. "I don't think I can finish this." She pushed away the pie and looked at Elijah. "Do you want it?" Wide-eyed, he nodded and raised his spoon in the air. "I can finish it. There you go." She gave him the dessert. smiling to herself. She was usually strict when it came to sugar at night, but they deserved a break after everything they'd gone through. Her smile quickly disappeared when she remembered Lydia. She still had to tell the boys and she didn't know how. Ava, you and Sean take the boys back to their cabin, Noah said, standing up with his polished tray. Lillian, come. He left Lillian gaping at his back. She took a deep calming breath. He did not just order her around like a pet dog. Lillian kissed Elijah and Desra, then bid goodbye to Avi and Sean. Only Ava replied. After leaving her tray in the disposal area, she hurried outside. She ignored the looks and whispers as she stood at the door, searching for the damn Alpha. She spotted him a second later, shrouded in darkness. He waited for her to join him before walking away. You know, panting because his steps were much larger than hers. I don't appreciate being ordered around. Noah came to a halt. Lillian almost tripped on her bare feet to stop too. The Alpha looked away through eyes glowing amber. Now that she was accustomed to the darkness, she could see well enough to note the raised brow he directed her way. In the Alpha, and you're now part of this pack. Lily uncrossed her arms. I'm not a wolf. I don't do well with orders, even from you. That's a human way of thinking, Noah said, taking a step closer to her. She held her ground despite the frisson of apprehension that crawled up her spine. No, that's my way of thinking. Raising her chin, I'll work my buff for the pack, and do what's asked of me, but I won't be spoken to like a subject. And you'll appreciate it if you understand that. You're setting a bad example for your pups. His eyes were now glowing light bulbs. Lillian sighed. They're wolves. They'll learn just like the rest of the pups. I'll try my best to not influence them with my humanness. But you have to understand, I don't have a wolf that wants to submit to you because you're the Alpha. Please, respect that. Noah stepped forward until he was toe-to-toe with her, scrutinizing amber orbs. She had to crane her neck to keep their gazes locked, and she worked really hard to keep herself from taking a step back. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a second, then exhaled loudly. When they opened, they were darker. You know, I can break your neck like a twig. Lillian grinned. I know. His brows lowered in a confused frown. Lillian thought the expression was cute on him, considering he was a 6'5" male built like a mountain with a striking scar on his bearded face. Lillian thought that maybe she was going crazy. But you won't, Lillian continued, more confidently than she felt. You had your chance to get rid of me. It's too late now. If you wanted to kill her, you would have done it that morning. Lillian didn't know Noah, but from what she gathered from the members of the pack, they held him in high regard, trusted him and felt protected with him in the lead. Noah blinked, tilted his head to the side, then stared at her. For too long, Lillian cleared her throat, so she finally broke the silence. Where are we going? You remind me of someone. Noah stepped around her then started walking before she could ask. We're going to my office. I thought your office was in the pack house, Lillian said, walking beside him. I have another. Lillian was surprised at herself. For some reason, after what had happened that morning, she wasn't as afraid of Noah as she should have been. He was an unfamiliar male, and she was walking around alone with him, at the dead of the night in a dark forest. She did feel wary, but underneath it all was an unexpected sense of security that sprung to life from a deep, nameless part of her being. A few minutes' walk, during which Lily whipped a few times due to her human eyesight that couldn't function in the darkness. They reached a one-story cabin. It was slightly isolated from the pack village, perched on a hill that made Lillian aware of her lack of shape. She was breathless by the time they reached the top. A lone light shone on the front porch, highlighting the wide space. The cabin was big, but there were logs and tools on the porch and the area surrounding the house. The building work was still ongoing. Noah walked in and held the door open for her. He turned on the light to reveal an unfinished living room, a sole black couch in its center. Lillian followed as Noah walked deeper into a hallway, closed doors on either side of them. He led them to his office. A messy wooden desk sat in front of a window to the left of the room, a fireplace on the far right, and what caught Lillian's attention, shelves spanning the length of the wall facing the door. It was packed with books, a massive library that Lillian wanted to take her time exploring title by title. "Come in," Noah said from where he combed through the papers on his desk with a frown. Lillian slowly walked in. Although it was bare of furniture except for the desk and the chairs, the room felt like a sanctuary. A coffee mug on the desk, a blanket and a pillow on the ground near the fireplace with a few books stacked beside it, pictures on top of the mantel, perching on a chair in front of the desk. Lillian looked as Noah fired on a laptop, then walked out of the room. He returned a minute later with a pair of socks and white baskets. Lillian thought it was weird that he waited until he got home to put on shoes since he'd been barefoot every time she'd seen him. But then he handed them to her. Surprised, her hands took over and accepted the items. "Put them on until you get ones that fit." He sat on his chair. "Your feet are a mess." Lillian blinked. "Thank you." Her feet were numb from the cold and the bruises, but she put on the socks and shoes. They felt like boats in her feet. She'd treat the scrapes later. "What can you do?" Lillian frowned. "If there's a need somewhere, I can fill in. I learn quickly." Noah typed something on the laptop, squinted, then shook his head. "What would you do if you had the choice?" Lillian bit her lip, considering the question. Even in high school, before getting pregnant, the only passion she had laid with the earth. "I'm a decent cook, and I had a small garden back home that did pretty well. I've always had a green thumb." Noah nodded, shifting his eyes from the computer to hers. "Tomorrow someone will introduce you to the wolf responsible for gardening. Start there and see how it goes." Lillian felt a spark of excitement. She nodded eagerly. "Tu m'as agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Coordinate with them so you'll have time for class. You need to have at least a minimum of knowledge about our world." Now, Noah loosely linked his fingers and leaned forward, fixing her with a piercing gaze. "How did you know that Rick was an animal and not a shapeshifter's pup?"